session at 6 o'clock. The date is June the 2nd of 2020. And we are still operating in a virtual mode in accordance with the order of the Office of the Governor issued March 16th, that we can continue to have our virtual meetings by remote conduct, and that is what we are continuing to do. So just as some housekeeping, I asked Kristen, we do not have any public comments. So at that portion of the City Council meeting, item number 3, I will make a comment that we are going to dispense with item number 3 since we have no citizens input. But we have a significant number of items we've got a long list of things to go over with consent agenda. So just wanted to cover that initially. And as well, just to give you all a heads up, the letter that Chief Brown and Chief Lavigny sent out that we all received, it's a superb letter, and I have asked for one of the chiefs to read that into the record for tonight's City Council meeting, and that will be part of the mayor's report. And Chief Lavigny will be doing that in the stead of Chief Brown, who is having to take care of some urgent personal business tonight. So we'll be covering that and going forward with that. So moving forward with our work session and understanding what we have in front of us tonight, we can go ahead and discuss the agenda items. So Mr. Hugman, if you would proceed please with the consent agenda items.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight on your consent agenda, item 4A is to consider the minutes for the May 19th, 2020 City Council regular meeting. Item 4B is a resolution approving a landscape maintenance agreement with TxDOT for the landscaping improvements along US Highway 67. And you know, we've been discussing with you for actually a couple of years now, the Green Ribbon Grant Program. We were awarded 2 different allocations of funding from TxDOT for that Green Ribbon project. $486,000 for the Wintergreen Road intersection to be shared with Cedar Hill, and then $1 million for us to landscape improvements around Cockrell Hill intersection at US 67. So we're still working with TxDOT in moving forward on this Green Ribbon Grant Program. But there are some pieces that need to be approved. And the item before you tonight is a landscape maintenance agreement with TxDOT, which just is the agreement that we will maintain the landscaping once we install it. You will also see then an advanced funding agreement come forward at some point when TxDOT is ready with that and we're ready. And then an interlocal agreement with the city of Cedar Hill. So there are some other additional pieces involved in this project. But at this time, those are not ready, and TxDOT is requesting that we approve the landscape maintenance agreement. So that is the item before you tonight on this agenda. Item 4C is a resolution authorizing a cooperative purchasing agreement with Sampax 5-Star Ford through local government purchasing cooperative. This is in an amount of $117,758. And this is to replace 3 Ford F-150 half-ton pickups and then a 1-ton cargo van. The pickups are older, 2008, two 2008s and a 2010 F-150. In fact, 2 of those trucks were pushed out several years on our fleet rotation past their scheduled rotation because they were still in pretty good condition, but they are getting to the point where they need to be replaced. The van as well is an older van, and it is used for our SWAT team. It does not really meet the needs, plus it being an older van, so we're upgrading that to a little bit larger vehicle to accommodate their needs. The funds are allocated in our fleet rotation fund.
Can I ask, I'm sorry, I missed something. On the, can I back up one thing? On the landscaping agreement, is that is that a forever agreement? Is that a terminal? I mean, can you terminate that agreement? Is that?
It does allow for termination in the agreement. There was a stipulation for that. And I think Greg Ramey is on. He can probably discuss that in more detail and answer that question, Councilmember Anderson.
Yes, sir. This is Greg. There is an allowance for us to no longer do the landscaping, but then what would happen is TxDOT would just pull it all out and let it go back to grass. They're not going to take care of it for.
Yeah, I'm just curious, landscaping that doesn't get, kept up, doesn't look good, and a lot of people put in landscaping they can't afford to maintain for a long period of time. So how much input do we have in what goes there? It's something that's got to be easy to maintain and sustainable, to maintain. I deal with it in my properties all the time.
So that's a very good point, Councilmember Anderson. And certainly what we're looking at is native type plantings, low maintenance type plantings, and we have full input on what goes in there. And in fact, those concept plans have come before the council with the landscape plantings and things. So our intention is, for it to be low maintenance and as much native material as we can, but still providing the color and the pop that we would like to have along there.
Just as an insert to that, Monty, I recall quite specifically, we had I don't know if it's a consultant, but a professional horticulturist who worked with TxDOT to explain to us the types of plants, and it was laid out almost square foot by square foot in terms of the native plants that were going to be around this architecture and around the medians and so forth to provide the lowest amount of maintenance possible, in addition to not having to have irrigation out there. So there was quite a bit of work put into the designation of what that landscape is going to look like.
Okay.
That was probably a good year and a half ago, I'm guessing. It was just quite some time ago in the early planning stages of this.
Okay, thank you.
The next item on your agenda, item 4D, is a resolution authorizing a purchasing agreement with Vortex Companies, Vortex Infrastructure Holdings. This is in an amount of $1,162,258. This is to continue our wastewater sewer pipe bursting replacement program. Vortex, we used in 2018. They were awarded a contract rather in 2018 and used them last year for pipe bursting. And that was in an amount of $1.9 million. Vortex is on the interlocal purchasing system cooperative agreement, and we were able to review their pricing on that co-op and compare it to some recent bids that they have been awarded through the competitive bid pricing, and found that the pricing that's on the co-op, their discounted pricing is comparable to bidding. And as I said, we used them previously through the competitive bid process. They're a good company to work with, so we're recommending this award of this contract for pipe bursting. And then there is a map in your agenda as well for the locations. This is generally in the areas of and I lost my place where the locations, but the locations are on that project location map. So again, this is to continue our efforts in replacing sewer pipe and reducing our sanitary sewer overflows. And we have had success in doing that. And we will discuss that too in more detail next week with you in our budget workshops.
Mr. City Manager, I have a quick question, but if I remember, Forest was one of the areas in there that's always been high on. It seems like we have overflows there, so I think that's one of them that was in the target of the area.
Yes, sir. That is correct. The manhole at Little and South Main used to be the first one that would overflow when we had heavy rains, and that is no longer the first one, and that was the efforts of the pipe bursting over the last couple of years. Forest Circle is now the one that tends to overflow when we have heavy rains. So again, it's longer duration now, more rain that's to get to that point, but we are having those. So that's our high priority area now, is that area, and that's what we're working on, addressing that. And you can see on the map that area that's clouded there in the upper right hand area is to address that area, the Forest Circle area. Item 4E is the resolution approving a project-specific agreement with Dallas County for mill and overlay in the amount of $355,510. Again, this is part of our normal street maintenance program. As we talked to you before, we have different levels of street maintenance, including crack sealing, microsurfacing, and mill and overlay is the most intensive maintenance type program where you go in and actually mill 4 to 6 inches of asphalt and then repave it. We have bid that out in the past. This year we are working with Dallas County and using them to do the mill and overlay. Their prices are comparable to what we have paid for contractors. We wanted to use the county to do that project this year. We already have an interlocal agreement, a master interlocal agreement with Dallas County. So what this is a project-specific agreement for those specific projects at that cost.
Mr. Hugman, I recall that when we had our meeting up at Commissioner's Court with Commissioner John Wiley Price talking about the Wintergreen project, and I know that's the next item coming up, but there's a basic in that master interlocal agreement in terms of a split between city costs and county costs. Is it always the county picks up the labor and the city picks up material, or is there a time when the county can pick up both material and labor?
I'm going to defer that question to the Public Works Director, who's more familiar with PSA.
Sir, this is Greg. So in the case that we had that emergency level up over on Wintergreen between Cockrell Hill and the DeSoto Bridge, that was 100% by the county for the emergency.
That's right.
Basically, what it boiled with the mill and overlay contract, we're basically leveraging their contractors, and so we're just paying a negotiated rate. Now, with the Wintergreen job that you'll see probably next, in that case, you do see a combination where what is more typical, which is they pay labor, we pay materials, and then at no time do they ever pay more than half the cost.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, Greg, remind me, this one, is that on that just the bridge or is it the whole street?
I didn't hear you, sir. Can you say that again?
Is it just the bridge on that Wintergreen or the whole street?
No, they are going to reconstruct Wintergreen back. You know, it'll stay 2-lane asphalt, but they're reconstructing it all the way from Cockrell Hill all the way to the bridge, including a culvert underneath that's under about 2/3 down from Cockrell Hill before you get to the bridge.
Yeah, that's a whole lot. So who's going to take it from the bridge to back to what's the other part of that street? Pleasant Run? That's not Pleasant Run. Who's going to take the other half? You said it's going to stop at the bridge, but it goes further.
DeSoto's got to go from this. That's a DeSoto initiative.
Are they doing it all at the same? Are we doing all this at the same time?
They're not doing anything over there, sir. We're doing our part.
All right, thank you. Have we talked to them, by the way?
I did mention that to them back when we were starting our work, but they're not doing anything. Really, when we get this started, we'll just let them know when we're working, because their citizens are the ones that live on the south side. Their citizens are affected, but no, they're not. They haven't done anything on that side, other than we've talked to them That's it.
I'll bring it up to the councilman who works who's over that district. He's always, we're talking back and forth. So I'll also bring it up to him as well. See if that'll help.
Well, you may do that, and just so you know, Councilmember Cook said Commissioner Price is aware of DeSoto's inaction on this.
Okay.
So it's not a surprise to anybody. DeSoto's just decided not to perform any work right at this time.
Okay. Here's the reason I bring it up. They're real big on that country club. And I'm just kind of curious why they wouldn't do it. So I'll just ask them. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, so I guess we're on to F.
Hey, Mayor, Council, item 4F we've just been talking about is the
Right.
agreement
Right.
on Green Road. This is to reconstruct that portion of Wintergreen between Cockrell Hill and the city limits of Duncanville for the bridge. We have continually had pothole problems there. And so as Greg alluded to, discuss, and that was a discussion that we had with Commissioner Price some months back, and they did the emergency repair on it in the, I think, late summer, and to a condition to hold it until they could do the full mill and overlay, and that's what this will be. Because they are cost sharing, our share of the cost of that will be $122,000. So this is a good project for us to be able to get that part of the road reconstructed that has been a continual maintenance problem for us.
I just want, this is Councilmember Jameson. I just wanted to say that, remember, we were told on the other part by our attorney that we didn't have a choice, that we had to, that we had this unspoken agreement with Dallas County that we had to. So I'm just wondering why DeSoto doesn't have the same gun to their head that they have to do this.
Councilman Jameson, I'm not sure what you're referring to about had to. We're talking about the maintenance of the road. I'm not clear on.
Right, but that area, part of it's ours and part of it's DeSoto's as it keeps going. And so I just wonder why they're not keeping up their part when we were told that we had to keep up ours.
I'm not aware of anyone that told us we had to keep up that road, but that part of it. So
Yeah, well, they did. It's rhetorical because, I mean, that was the county.
Item 4G is a resolution to approve an agreement with Dallas County for administration of the CDBG home and ESG programs. This is just the administrative contract with Dallas County to allow us to participate in the CDBG program. We do not participate in home or ESG, but this is the normal administrative agreement with the county. And so it is, we do this, this is effective for 3 years. This is not tied to the funding, but if we did not have this agreement in place, we would not be able to participate in that. So, and those are all of the items on the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you. So we'll be prepared to accept a motion to accept those when we go into the city council meeting. Moving on to item number 2, briefings and presentations. They have the calendar. As we've agreed with every city council meeting, we're going to talk about the calendar. And I think it's even more important now as things are progressing. You just may or may not have seen the email that came out a short time ago from City Secretary Kristen Downs about setting up appointments to meet with the executive search Senior Vice President with Margie Rose. So as we move forward into this, looking those dates and anything else on the calendar, it's important for us to look at what may be facing us in the future. I have one question, Mr. Hugman. It occurred to me just a few minutes ago. I don't have in my mind a clear date for reestablishing in-person city council meetings. And can we discuss that? I mean, this is an appropriate time to discuss that because it comes on the calendar.
Well, that is really the gist of what we wanted to discuss with you tonight is we have the upcoming budget workshops next week, Monday and Tuesday evenings. And we wanted to discuss with you whether you want to do that via video conference like we are doing, or do it in person, or do some hybrid. And so we have proposed some different options for you. We can meet in person. There is no prohibition on meeting in person. We can still accommodate social distancing with with the options that we've provided to you. Where it gets a little tricky is being able to provide the technology for video conferencing if there is a desire to do a hybrid, where some of you wish to do it from video conferencing and some wish to do it from home. So City Secretary Kristen Downs has been working with our IT manager, Tracy Beekman, on looking at some different options. But one option is to entirely video conference the entire meeting. You know that the budget workshop is a lot of information. There's a lot of discussion involved in that. It may be longer and more difficult video conferencing. But if that's what you wish to do, we just want to be prepared. We can also do it in the council chambers, and we can social distance in there. We can provide live broadcasting there, and we can also do recording. But we do not have the ability really to do the hybrid from the conference from the council chambers, because we don't have connection in there to provide the video conferencing setup for those who are in attendance there. So we wanted to look at the council chambers. It would probably require all of you to be there. The senior center is an option. Again, the senior center have a lot of room for social distancing. We can record it for later broadcast. Again, we don't have the technology as easily there to do the hybrid. The briefing room, we can do hybrid, where we have done that before, as you know, where we did the video conferencing from there, and some were in attendance and some were not. There's not as much room in there, but we can make that work as well with the social distancing. So those are some options, but we wanted your input on what you think as far as how would you like to conduct the budget workshops next Monday and Tuesday. We're planning have those scheduled from about 6 to 10 p.m.
Why don't we just run it down the council members by district and see what we're looking at. So Joe, what are your feelings?
I like option one. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I like option one first, and then option two would be second.
Back and explain option one. In person, hybrid, or all video? Let's put it that way.
All video. I'm sorry, sir.
Okay, all video. Okay, Don.
I tend to agree with Mr. Veracruz that considering some of our circumstances, maybe that we do need to do it Zoom, but I would be willing for option 2 or 3.
Okay, Monty.
I'm okay. Don, did you say you didn't want to do video?
That was my preferred option at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, I'm open for the video. I don't have to get dressed up that way. No, I'm fine I'm really fine either way. Anyway, I'm pretty easy. Y'all can choose. But video's fine with me. I'm okay.
Okay, Mark.
I'd rather go in person, and so I will either way. Probably would like to be there in person.
Okay, Johnette.
Am I muted?
Gotcha. You're good. You're good.
Okay. I would, while I enjoy doing this from home, because I know how involved the budget is and being able to look at things and ask questions, and this is more complicated than just the meetings that we're doing now. I think, as much as I hate to say it, that it should be in person, and probably at the Senior Citizen Center, because we can spread out and have social distancing.
Okay, Patrick.
hang on, I got a new computer here.
No, you're good. We got you.
All right. I prefer option one. If not option one, then we can go to the senior center and then the council chambers in
Okay.
that order.
Okay. My preference is to do it in person, knowing how we've gone through the book in the past and the detail. So I guess in the senior center would be the best location, I think, to do that. So I guess, but Kevin, you said we can't do a hybrid from the senior center.
I don't think we can. I'm going to let Kristen, Kristen, if you would answer that question.
We cannot do a hybrid at the senior center. We would only be, everybody would have to be there, and then we can broadcast it on YouTube the following day.
Hey, could we not, for those that didn't want to be face to face, could we not do both? I mean, some in person will be in person, the other will be Zoom. And
Well, that's
well.
that's the hybrid, and we can do it in the briefing room.
Briefing room, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I think the problem with the senior center is being spread out there. It would really be disadvantageous to whoever's on video conferencing. They would not be able to see all the council. They wouldn't really be able, they would not be able to interact as easily, I think, is the issue. Whereas in the briefing room, it's smaller area. You can see everyone easier, as we did that one time. The senior center it's not as conducive to that. And I think that's really the downside to that, to try to do a hybrid there.
So I would, like I said, I'd prefer to do it in person. If we can do the hybrid, then it looks like as though the briefing room would be the prime location for that. And those that want to be full video are welcome to, and those that want to come in person, they're welcome to do either way. That way we can, everybody has their option on what they would like to do. Does that work?
Fine.
Okay. I think we've got an idea of which way to go there. So Kristen and Tracy and Kevin, we'll work a hybrid out of the briefing room
then.
Hybrid out of the briefing room. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, I have a question about that. So as I remember when we did it one time, like Paul had to set up his computer in the corner where the coffee pot is. And it kind of stayed there, and that was the total video. If we do a hybrid, like if I have my laptop, I can see everybody right now that's opened up their video. If we do hybrid in the briefing room, can like Mark and Johnette and I still have this video capability that we're seeing now, or are we going to be restricted to not being able to see the video except for what's on like Paul's computer? I see Paul just popped up.
Yeah, I think the problem that we had, Mayor, with that as well was that we were using the phone-in audio as well, and so it was causing some of the feedback. Now that we've gone with Zoom, and if we stick with Zoom, that may solve the problem. Again, that's something we need to just make sure that we get Tracy on to make sure that we have that fixed.
Okay.
But we'll work toward that end to make sure that each of the council members that are there, and they bring their devices, that they can see the other council members.
Okay.
But I think that was the main problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like Paul said, I think the main thing there was the audio part of that. So if we can set it up where you can use your laptop for video, but you're not using it for audio, we shouldn't have the problem with feedback. But we'll work towards that then. If anyone, if you do change your mind, if any of the council members change your mind, if it ends up that everyone is planning to come in, well, then we can do it in the council in the senior center. So I guess what I would ask you is if those council members who are wanted to do the video conferencing, if you do change your mind, just let us know in advance, and then we can gauge if we need to adjust.
Now, one thing I'm thinking about with the audio, we are still going to be using masks. Coming in even to the briefing room, we're coming in person. Is that correct? I know it's not mandated, but it's strongly recommended, quote unquote. So
Yes.
we'd be talking behind masks doing that.
Even while we're social distance.
Even with social distancing,
We did.
still masks.
Think about what we did on the when we interviewed the two candidates. We were spread it out enough that we were able to take our masks off in the room.
I know.
What's gonna be a difference?
But it wasn't a public forum in terms of our representing ourselves as representatives of the city and complying with social distancing and all the other aspects of it. So that's what I'm asking. You know, it's not a mandate that we use masks. It's strongly recommended by the governor. Even today, with the governor in city council chambers with Mayor Price and Mayor Johnson, they had masks. Now they, if I recall, they took them off. They moved them to the side when they were speaking through the microphone. But while they were sitting, they were masked and social distancing in city council chambers of the city of Dallas. So I'm just putting that on the table that I believe if, you know, doing that, those of us that do choose to show up in person, we should be using masks. And how that's going to affect audio, I'm only thinking about the effect of the on the audio portion.
But you just once you move that mask to speak, it should be okay.
Could do that. Yeah. Just with yeah. Okay. All right. Kevin, Paul, and Tracy, and Kristen, leave it up to y'all. You know, we need to dry run it a couple times to get a good handle on it. Certainly can do that. Okay. All right.
I think that was the main thing we wanted to talk to you about on the calendar. We also did want to again mention that the June 22nd, you have a planned meeting with P&Z Commission. Same kind of question. Is that something you're going to want to do in person? Again, a lot of discussion on zoning ordinance update. What our intention is to recover some of the ground that we did the last workshop because it's been a while. And I'm not sure that we had clear consensus from the council on some of those different things. So we're going to want to backtrack some of those items again and you know, regroup. So, but again, I don't think we right now, but we do need to know pretty soon because we've got to be able to set up that meeting. If that's something you're going to want to do video conferencing, or again, if you're going to want to do it in person or a hybrid for that joint meeting with Planning and Zoning Commission.
So that would be, what would be the total? Let's see, they've got how many? They've got 7, 8. They've got 7. We've got 7 plus all the staff, plus the consultants. And Zoom can handle all that?
Yes, sir. Zoom can handle it, but the hybrid is going to be very hard that we probably can't do a hybrid meeting because there's going to be a lot of people. So it's either Zoom for everybody, or it would have to be at the senior center with everybody in attendance.
We really need to be able to see the things that are going on and talking about it, because it was very involved. We don't want to change our code book without being very clear on what we expect and want. So, you know, can we not wait and maybe do this next month and see if some of the restrictions have been lifted?
We can, and I was going to mention that is an option too. I think when you set the date, you were kind of hoping that, you know, we would be farther along. So certainly we can push this another month to July, and I think certainly by then we would probably see more of the restrictions being lifted. So that is certainly an option, yes.
That's a good idea, John. Why don't we just hold off on this one then and see how things progress through the month of June and work it that way.
And I will tell y'all that on the calendar for July 20th, we do have a joint meeting with P&Z already scheduled. Okay. So we can keep that date.
We are just too good, aren't we?
Hey, will you go,
What was that? What was that you said? What are we having on June 20th?
July 20. July 20, we have a joint meeting with P&Z already scheduled.
So we had already scheduled out 2 workshops, one in June and one in July. So what Kristen is saying is the one in July will just still stand on the calendar. We just won't have the June one.
Right, good.
And then you end up having one probably in August or something.
Right. Very good. Okay.
I'm
Good.
sorry, Kevin, tell me the date again for the workshop next week.
Next week's is Monday and Tuesday, June 8th and 9th at 6 p.m.
And I don't know if you answered the mayor's question on when is this being updated? How much longer on the open meetings? Did you say June 12th? We'll know more.
Right. So when we were talking earlier, and I'll let the city attorney weigh in, right now, the governor's order that he extended on May 12th, he extended it for 30 days, and that included the waivers to the Texas Open Meetings Act, which allows us to do the video conferencing the way we are now. So we know that that's in effect at least until June 12th. I don't know what will happen past that, and maybe, so I'll defer to the city attorney. He may have some information or thoughts on that. Unmute, Bob.
There, Mayor and Council, we believe that the governor may extend some of these restrictions, especially on mass gatherings of more than 10 people. They may up that to 25 or 50, which would allow your council meetings, but there may still be some restrictions with regard to some of these issues. I assume that the governor may think it's not the time to fill up Texas Stadium to see the Cowboys play yet. So we think that there'll be some extensions of some social distancing, but it may allow us to go ahead and start meeting again in the near future. We're not real sure, but we believe that there'll be some extension of the emergency in the COVID restrictions, probably through the summer. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Yeah. So anything else on for the calendar? Seeing none. Okay. That being the case, we are finished with the briefing sessions and items. Then we can go into executive session and see if we can get executive session completed by the time we get ready to open city council at 7. Is everybody good with that? Okay, executive session, I will read it. In city council shall convene into closed executive session pursuant to section 551.074. Personnel matters to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissals of a public officer or employee, to wit, name an interim city manager effective July 1st of 2020. So we are recessing our city council meeting at 6:38. Make a note. No, we're not recessing. No. 6:38. Yes, we are. Okay, we are recessing our working briefing session at 6:38. Everybody please log off and go to your email and log into the executive session. Okay, I see. Well, Monty was there. Now Monty's, okay, there's Monty back. Okay, so timestamp is 7:27. Calling to order our city council meeting of the city of Duncanville on June the 2nd, 2020. And once again, the timestamp on the call to order is 7:27. Gotta make a note. Okay, next on the agenda is the invocation. And Ms. Jameson, would you honor us with doing that, please?
Can you hear me?
We have you. Yes, we do. Thank you.
Okay, and you asked me to do the invocation?
If you would, please.
Okay. Our dear Heavenly Father, please be with us, guard us, watch us, direct us. We're here in your name, trying to do your will and take care of the citizens of Duncanville. Please bless us with your wisdom and your knowledge. Share with us and lead us, direct us in the way you'd have us go, and understand what your will is for your people. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. If you would rise where you're at, and we'll do the pledges to our flags, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Okay, we're going into the mayor's report. And the first thing that I would like to do is read a statement of my own. And then I'm going to ask Assistant Chief Lavigny to read a letter that he and Chief Brown composed. I'd like to read this for y'all. My fellow citizens of Duncanville, my wife and I are deeply saddened by the unjust death of George Floyd. The actions of the police officers involved were brutal and personally disgusting to us. To all people of color in our city, I know this time is painful. Racial discrimination has no place in our society. We are proud of the ethnic diversity of our city of Duncanville. The contributions each of you make on a daily basis make us the peaceful city that we are. We are equally proud of the manner in which our community has joined together, understanding that the rights and the privileges we cherish in America are exercised with honor. Time and time again, you have demonstrated care for each other without regard for race, creed, or color. As your mayor, I promise to ensure that our city remains safe and that everyone is treated with dignity and respect. I am confident in your trust that we will heal and get through this hurting time together. God bless us all. And now I would like to turn my portion of the mayor's report over to Assistant Chief Lavigny. Assistant Chief Mark Lavigny and Chief Robert Brown wrote an incredibly superb letter. It has been posted on social media. I want it read into the record for our city council and for our citizens. So Assistant Police Chief Mark Lavigny, please go ahead.
Mayor, thank you, and good evening, Mayor and Council and citizens. First of all, let me express that Chief Brown would have liked to have been here to be able to read this to the community, but due to unforeseen personal circumstances, he was unable to do so. So he asked me to stand in his place. The letter of which the mayor references was dated June 1st of 2020. It reads, the Duncanville Police Department sends our condolences to the family of Mr. George Floyd. The appalling death of Mr. Floyd 1 week ago at the hands of police officers of the Minneapolis Police Department was inhumane, deeply disturbing, upsetting, and heartbreaking. The actions and use of force displayed are inconsistent with the training and protocols of the Duncanville Police Department. Furthermore, the Duncanville Police Department has implemented additional training for our police officers regarding care, custody, control, and restraint of prisoners. This additional training is meant to augment training of our police officers have already received, thereby enhancing our commitment to our duty of care to all, especially those who are in our custody. Additionally, and beyond citizen interaction training recently mandated by the state of Texas, members of our department have attended de-escalation training, as well as training on the concept of implicit bias, all of which are of paramount importance to effectively and compassionately providing professional police services to our community. While no single incident should define a city or a police department, we as police officers must be willing to stand up and denounce injustice, which so clearly shocks our conscience in the absence of any viable explanation, especially when the injustice is committed by a police officer. Simply put, the involved Minneapolis police officers must be held legally accountable for their actions and inactions. The legitimacy of law enforcement throughout our country is based on our objective reputation, which directly affects our effectiveness. That legitimacy rests solely with the communities we serve, based on their trust in our police organizations. The Duncanville Police Department has enjoyed a long history of community support. Everyday members of our department strive to compassionately and professionally ensure public safety of all citizens. Please rest assured, the men and women of the Duncanville Police Department prioritize the sanctity of life in every situation. Further, we are committed to respecting and protecting the dignity, safety, and rights of all citizens. The Duncanville Police Department remains steadfast in our duty to honorably serve the citizens of Duncanville while being accountable to you, our citizens, through our unparalleled professionalism and dedication. Our badge has been tarnished by Mr. Floyd's senseless and tragic death. Our job will be even more difficult because of inexcusable actions of police officers formerly employed by the Minneapolis Police Department. However, the men and women of the Duncanville Police Department are committed to working even harder to keep, and in some cases gain, your trust. We thank you for your tremendous support. Thank you, Mayor.
You're on mute. You're on mute, Mayor.
Thank you, Chief Lavigny, and to Chief Brown. Sorry for your issues that you can't be here with us tonight, but our thoughts and our prayers are with you. And for all the women and men in our law enforcement, we stand with you to do everything we can possibly as an entire council to ensure your safety, and know that you have our trust and our 100% confidence in all that you do. Thank you very much to all of our police force. And we know that our firefighters and other first responders as well, and Tonya Hunter in emergency management, this is a very tough time for everyone, but we will get through this. We will heal together. So thank you to y'all, and God bless you all. Second thing I want to bring up is the current status of COVID-19 in our city. We continue to have community spread. As of today, we have 162 cases, which continues to climb slowly in our city, thankfully, but in the county of Dallas, it is once again really taken a big spike today. There are 257 additional cases today, and unfortunately, regrettably, one of the 16 deaths recorded for today is a citizen of Duncanville, a female in her 70s who was in critical condition in hospital. Our condolences and our thoughts and our prayers go to that individual's family. So folks, we're not out of this yet. If you continue to take a look at those recommendations by medical officials and scientists, we're still in the red. We're still in the red. We need to do social distancing. We need to take care of ourselves. And we need to, can't say you have to wear a mask, but it would certainly be in your best interest to take care of yourself and wearing a mask when you go out in public. So with that, that concludes the mayor's report. Any city council members' reports? Mr. Cooks?
Yes, Mayor, Council. Hey, I want to start my council report by thanking the chief for his open letter to the council and to the city. I commend you for being proactive, responding on behalf of Duncanville law enforcement, and providing a plan to reinvest in your officers through additional training and not waiting for something to happen or being asked to do it. At the moment, our country is in a critical state with COVID-19 and with the heightened awareness of racism in America. Being a father of 2 adult sons and 1 grandson, my heart aches as I hear the news report and see what happened to Mr. Floyd. I recall as a young boy being stopped by the police because I was what was then called in the wrong neighborhood at that time. It was very frightening, but thankful I'm able to tell about it. Mr. Floyd did not. Only later in life, having to explain to my younger son why he was so often stopped in his own neighborhood. I'm glad he knows what to do, and now as a man, he can share with his own son. Duncanville is a great place to live and raise your family, and it stands above other cities with 1/3 of ethnicity across the board. However, just because our number shows diversity, I know we still stand room for improvement. Let's work together in our city and show other cities how a real diversity city looks and feels. Speak to our neighbors, speak to our younger generation, find out what's going on in their lives. Don't be deceived into thinking that Duncanville is exempt from what we see around America, because we are not. Let's work together and say we're working harder than some. How do we do it? By creating a diverse workforce, making opportunity for contract dollars without diverse vendors, making sure our policies and ordinance are written to support our spirit of diversity to benefit the entire city. Let's support one another by shopping locally. With all that said, I want to thank the citizens of Duncanville and thank our police department. The second thing I want to thank is Kevin Hubman. As you know, I had the Meet, Connect, and Learn. And for the first time, we did it on Zoom. We had over 20 people to connect with us by Zoom and some by live Facebook. We had over 185 people to listen to Kevin talk about services for the city. So it went extremely well, and we will continue with our Meet, Connect, and Learn through Zoom. And then secondly, I just want to know Monty will chime in to make the council aware that the task force with the business owners started off with our meeting very strong, and each business owner was very excited to be a part of the task force, and we're looking to bring you more information later. Thank you.
Just to chime in on that, Mayor, while Mark's talking about that, we had, we selected 12 different business owners in the city. All of them showed up. Every one of them did. They stayed on the meeting. Councilman Bear Cruz also sat in on the meeting, and it's going to be a very good group. They're very interested in giving good feedback to the council. And Mayor, we appreciate you, and Mark, appreciate you for taking the leadership and pointing this. I think it's going to bear some fruit for us. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. McBurnett.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, thank you for your comments. Mark, thank you for your comments. Monty, you as well. I also want to put the reminder out for everybody. It's still census time, and we need to make sure that we emphasize census. So please, people, fill out your census. Thank you.
The latest data I saw that Texas is 42nd in the nation in response. Thankfully, Duncanville is much ahead of that. We're at close to 64% response right now. So yes, the census is still extremely important. Thank you for that. Any other council members' reports?
I'd like to say that, first of all, that I'm just extremely sorry for the events that took place. And I do think that Duncanville is a different place. I think all of us realize that we live in a very diverse city. And when I meet people and the conversation comes to that, I say, you know, that we are 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. And we live together, work together. And I'm very thankful that on the whole, we don't have those kinds of issues. We've chosen to live this way. And, you know, I really hope that the nation heals and that we find our way. So I'm grateful that our police chief chose to write a very positive letter. And just looking forward to a healing time. You know, we've had kind of a double whammy with the COVID-19 and then this. Also, as far as the meeting on the recovery on our businesses, I have talked to a business and I was asked if I knew any referrals, and I did find someone who I think will be a very, very good participant, and even brings with her business the knowledge of the CARE Act and what she did receive funding and how she went about it. And so I think it will be a very positive committee for our small businesses in Duncanville. And I just think we're real progressive and ahead of the ball, even though I think at times we feel like we're small and sort of a home community. We've got it going on. So good for us. That's all.
Thank you, Councilmember Jameson. Any other council member reports? Okay, seeing none, moving on to item 1C, the city manager's report. Mr. Hugman.
I have no report, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Item number 2, proclamations and presentations. We have none, so we'll skip that. Item number 3, citizens input. We have no citizens input, so we are skipping item number 3. We're moving on to item number 4, the consent agenda. City Secretary, would you please read the consent agenda items, please?
Item 4A, consider the minutes for the May 19th City Council regular meeting. 4B, consider a resolution approving the landscape maintenance agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation for landscape improvements along US Highway 67 corridor. 4C, consider a resolution authorizing a cooperative purchasing agreement with Sam Pax 5-Star Ford LTD through the local government purchasing cooperative contract number 601-19 and the expenditure amount of $117,758. 4D, consider a resolution authorizing a cooperative purchasing agreement with Vortex Companies Vortex Infrastructure Holdings, LLC, using the interlocal purchasing system, contract number 1711050, wastewater improvements, pipe bursting for the Public Works Department with an estimated expenditure amount of $1,162,258.75. 4E, consider a resolution approving the terms and conditions of the project-specific agreement with Dallas County for mill and overlay of city streets in the amount of $355,510. 4F, consider a resolution approving the terms and conditions of the project-specific agreement with Dallas County for reconstruction and replacement of a portion of Wintergreen Road and drainage pipe in the amount of $122,000. 4G, consider a resolution for an agreement of cooperation for cdbg HOME-ESG programs with Dallas County.
Thank you very much, City Secretary. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mayor, as Councilman McBurnett, I would like to make the motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
That would be Councilmember Vera Cruz. Okay, this will be I'm sorry.
Jameson. That was Jeanette Jameson, I believe.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Okay, the second was Councilmember Jameson. Thank you very much. Okay, City Secretary, it's a roll call vote.
Councilmember Vera Cruz, 4 are against.
4.
Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Anderson, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Cooks, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Jameson, 4 are against.
4.
Large Councilmember Harvey, 4 are against.
4.
Mayor Gordon, 4 are against.
4. Thank you. The consent agenda items is approved. Moving on to item 5, items for individual consideration. Consider a resolution approving an interlocal agreement by and between Dallas County, Texas and the city of Duncanville to provide funding to the city of Duncanville under the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security (CARES Act) under the terms and conditions of said agreement, providing for administration, authorizing execution of the agreement by the mayor. Okay, Mr. Hugman, you have a PowerPoint. Please go ahead.
Mr. Hugman, you're on mute.
Okay, sorry about that. As the mayor said, this is a resolution approving an interlocal agreement with Dallas County for CARES Act funding. Everyone is aware that the U.S. Congress passed the CARES Act in April that provided funding for state and local governments. That funding was only allocated directly to counties and cities over 500,000 population. So the city of Duncanville did not receive any direct funding. The state of Texas did receive funding through the CARES Act, and the state has elected to allocate a portion of their funding to the cities and counties that have not received the direct allocation. What that meant was that Dallas County was not included in that funding from the state, and therefore neither was the city of Duncanville, because we were a city located in Dallas County that had received allocation. Dallas County, though, has elected to provide funding to the cities located in Dallas County, and they're using the $55 per capita basis, which is what the state of Texas used in allocating funding to cities and counties that had not already received funding. What that means is that Duncanville would receive up to $2,173,050 funding based on our population. We be allocated 20% of that funding upfront with approval of this agreement. That funding could be used then for reimbursement of COVID-related expenses or programs. If I can go to the next slide. The other 80% of the funding would be available for relief assistance as the city may wish to use. Again, can be used for reimbursements to the city for our expenses or programs that we set up. It must comply with the CARES Act requirements, and we must have Dallas County approval for the use of those funds. Currently, we have incurred over $277,000 in expenses related to COVID. That is in personnel, equipment, and services. Some of that we can get reimbursement through sources such as FEMA. Some of it we can reimburse through the CARES Act. We will review all of the different applicable reimbursement programs to determine which ones best suit us, best suit our needs and the requirements of those individual programs. But it does allow us to be able to recoup some of the costs through that CARES Act funding. Otherwise, the other 80% of the funding too can also be used for programs. And so we have internally discussed some possible programs. The county, it has some programs available. Within the interlocal agreement, it does stipulate that the city cannot duplicate county programs. In a conference call with the county judge, Clay Jenkins, had with the mayors and city managers, they made it clear that that did not mean we could not do a same program. But what it meant was they did not want the same recipients to receive funding from the county and from the city. And the purpose of that being to spread out that funding as far as possible. So the county will be using a third-party administrator to administer some of their programs. We're not familiar. We know that there is a rental assistance program. I believe there's also a business assistance program. We do not know the details of that yet. But they will be using a third-party administrator to administer that. What we would suggest is that staff look into the county's programs and that third-party administrator, and if we can use the same third-party administrator, then that will help prevent some of that, prevent duplication of funding. We will also we want to work with the best Southwest cities, Lancaster, DeSoto, and Cedar Hill, in being able to look at programs that we could partner together, either again through the best Southwest and or with Dallas County. So there are some different possibilities. Another program that we know some cities have implemented and we've had some early discussion on is a utility assistance type of program. That could also be administered through a third party. For example, an agency that already provides utility assistance, we could partner with them to administer that program. And Duncanville Outreach Ministry is one that comes to mind. They do offer utility assistance. So there's a possibility that we could work with them using let them administer it, and we provide some funding, of course, with the requirements that meet the CARES Act. So there's some different avenues to move forward with this, to take advantage of this funding and provide relief assistance to our citizens and businesses. We don't have that in place, or we don't have those recommendations for you at this point, but we do recommend that we move forward with the acceptance of the interlocal agreement, and that will allow us then to immediately access that 20% of funds that are available from the county. With that, I would answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Harvey.
Okay, sorry about that. Trying to work through a different computer. Kevin, Mr. Hugman, I just wanted to convey that I hope and would encourage us to use a third-party administrator if in utilizing these monies as we move forward. And that's the comment I wanted to make. Thanks.
Following on to that, Mr. Harvey, we are in very, very close contact with the Commissioner's Court and the individuals who are hands-on administering this ILA. And they have strongly recommended that every city in Dallas County that is going to be a participant in the distribution of these funds signed on with that third-party administrator, because what it's going to do is prevent duplication of distribution of funds, double dipping, if you will. Because if that is discovered and they anticipate that there's going to be some federal and state auditing of the use of these monies, we need to be extremely careful and diligent that there's no replication of funds distributed by the county and by us as in the city. So it behooves us to go ahead and be a participant in that third-party agreement contract when it's cut. In the conversation last Friday that Mr. Hugman referenced with the judge and the mayors of Dallas County, at that point on Friday, there were only 4 cities that had actually completed the ILA. And we knew this was coming. We've known it for a couple weeks. And I've been having some talks with the other mayors and with Mr. Hugman about how fast do we move on this. And while we wanted to get going quickly as possible, we were told by the Commissioner's Court, there's no concern about our money not being available. It is there. It's been allocated. The dollars that Kevin showed, $2.1 million roughly, is there. And so there's no concern about if we get in late, that we're not going to get our share. So as of Friday, only 4 cities had actually completed their ILA. So we're really right on schedule. I want council to know that we're doing this today and getting this approval done today is really right on time. And we're looking forward to being able to work very, very closely with the Commissioner's Court. Now, if you want to delve deeper into what these monies can be used for, when you got some spare time, if you go through Exhibit A of the ILA, and it's 16 pages long, and then you get to the back end of those 16 pages, there are 4 more pages, and right there in Exhibit A, pages 2 through 4, there's a very clear delineation of eligible and ineligible uses of the monies. So it's not a matter of guessing what we can and can't use that money for. It's clear. It's very clearly laid out for us. We will not get into any problems in terms of what we use that money for based on that. So very confident in our staff and putting that together and coming to us for the approval of those monies. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you, Mr. Hugman, for that information. And so this ILA, while long and a lot of legal stuff, it basically says that we are entitled virtually immediately to 20% of that $2.1 million to come toward us. So any further discussion or questions for Mr. Hugman or for myself?
I could add one thing as well, Mr. Mayor. In speaking about the third-party administrator, the interlocal agreement does also allow up to 1% of the funds to be used for internal and external administration and oversight of the fund programs. So the funding is.
Does that third-party administrator charge the one that they're using, the county?
Well, yes, ma'am. There's a fee for their services. I don't know what that is yet. We have not seen the contract. It was our understanding last time the mayor talked with the county, the deputy director there that was overseeing this program, that the county was still working on their contract with the third-party administrator, but the city of Dallas had engaged them already. So we have not seen that yet. But again, we can use this same source of funding to pay the administrator for those services. And as the mayor said, you know, it would behoove us to do that with any kind of reimbursement program. What we don't want is from now, when an audit is done, they come back and they say we owe them money.
Right. I would say this, though. I noticed in their report that they are having rolling monthly reports. And I thought that's something that I think that we as a council ought to see are the monthly reports on the monies and where they're going and how they're being spent. And because this, unlike some of the funding, I think was pointed out earlier, is residential. There's some to reimburse for some utilities and rent. And so I think that we absolutely need to be involved and not just pass it off to another entity. The council needs to be involved in this.
Absolutely, Councilmember Jameson, and it would certainly be the council that would have to approve any programs, approve an agreement with a third-party administrator, and certainly what we would expect within the contract with the administrator then is frequent periodic reporting on where those funds are going, how the program's being administered, so that we can see the impact of it, the effectiveness of it. Yes, ma'am.
Well, even in fact, I'll add to that, Councilmember Jameson, in the initial conversations with the governor, he was very adamant that we cities and counties watch very, very carefully every line item and every dollar being spent because of the possible repercussion of not spending federal dollars appropriately. And knowing that might as well count on it, we're going to be audited. And so the line item distribution and the accounting of these funds is going to be very, very careful. And Nim Kidd, the director of the Texas Emergency Department of Management, I think that's what TEDM's, emphasize it as well, following on to the governor's remarks. Be careful and do exactly what's right in the use of these monies.
Well, I think that
it's
if
federal
we
stuff.
get that report, if we get a report that we can see, we can also get a feel for, where the preponderance of the funding is going, and make sure that it is in fact inclusive, though, of businesses, and if we have any residential needs, and making sure that it is being spent and in the correct way and in the right direction. It's great to have the third party doing the administration, but we're the ones that report to the people and need to make sure that everybody's getting what they need at this critical time from those monies that were allocated. And I feel like that's stronger than being involved with other entities that we need to take care of Duncanville and how the people here were affected.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things the money cannot be used for is a revenue shortfall as a result of COVID businesses being closed. That is restricted. So as I said, the use of these monies as outlined in that exhibit is very specific, and we will comply. There will be no problem.
And the member that I turned in to join the committee had received CARE funding and knew a tremendous amount that they're willing to share with the group here as far as what was true, what wasn't, filling out paperwork. So she doesn't qualify for what we're doing here locally, but having the information to share with others as far as what does qualify and what does not, what you cannot use it for.
Right, okay. Any other questions? If there's no questions, the chair will entertain a motion to approve.
Mayor, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve Councilman McBurnett.
Okay. And we have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, Councilmember Jameson seconded. This is a roll call vote. City Secretary, please call the roll.
Councilmember Veracruz, 4 are against.
4.
Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Anderson, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Cooks, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Jameson, 4 are against.
4.
At-large Councilmember Harvey, 4 are against.
4.
Mayor Gordon, 4 are against.
4. Thank you, Council. The motion is approved. Moving on to item 5B. appoint city council members to serve on the audit committee and discuss and consider private citizens' appointment to the audit committee, as well as designate a chairman for the committee. Mr. Hugman, your presentation, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I do not have a presentation, and this is before you. The resolution that established the audit committee does stipulate that the audit committee is appointed annually at the first city council meeting in June. There are 3 members on the city council as well as 2 citizen members, and so their terms are coming due in June. And I'll turn it over to Richard Summerlin, the finance director, who works with the audit committee, if he has anything he would like to add on that.
Mayor Gordon, Councilmember Cooks has his hand raised.
I did see that. We're calling on Mr. Summerlin to make a comment first. Mr. Summerlin.
See him unmuted, and I know he's here.
Is he sleeping?
There he is. Okay, now unmute. You're muted. You're muted. Still muted. Still muted. Okay. We're changing venues.
Mayor, Richard's going to come to my computer and address you guys. My station. Apologize for that. So
Okay.
I just wanted you all to know that I reached out to James Talley and Stephen Rutherford. They were our private citizens here in Duncanville, both CPAs. They both expressed desire to continue to serve on the audit committee. And also Patrick Harvey was previously the chairman of the audit committee. Don McBurnett and Joe Veracruz both served on the audit committee. They also expressed an interest to continue to serve if so appointed. And with that, I will turn it over for council discussion.
Okay, Mr. Cooks.
Yes, I think I applaud the audit committee having served on it before as well. My thoughts here, though, is to see if we could hold this until November to the elections. I know that the elections, we postponed one of the elections, and we know that there's only one council member there, but we still need to give any new potential or even the returning council member an opportunity to do it like we're doing everything else. I just think we need to hold off and ask the committee to continue to serve until the election time in November.
Is there any further discussion on this?
I'd like to serve. I've been on it before in past years, and I have questions about some different things I would like to ask about. And so is there, we don't have anything. I think that's something that we just sort of made up. So I don't think there's any limit to the number of council people that can serve on the committee.
Mr. Summerlin, do you have any information on that?
The policy says that the committee is comprised of 3 or more members as determined by the city council. 3 of the members shall be appointed by the city council from among its own members. And additionally, 2 members may be appointed who are not members of the council.
I would support Johnette being on that committee just for.
So just make sure that we understand the language. There's no limitation on the number of city council members that can serve. Is that correct?
I don't see anything here that specifically prohibits it.
Okay.
Mayor, council, I would, we do post the agendas for the audit committee, so I think from that standpoint, we're okay. The only thing I would ask, maybe the city attorney, if there's any concern with a majority of the council being on that or not. You're muted.
Mr. Hager, you're muted.
Mr. Hager, you're muted. Mr. Hager, there you go.
Yeah,
Mr. Hager.
there we go.
Muted.
All
There you
right.
go.
Yeah, then we'd have to post it as a council meeting. And depending on what the subject matter was, it would have to be posted as a council meeting because you have 4 members of the council, which is a majority of the city council. So that might be problematic.
But we already post the meetings. So all we do is add the verbiage that it's a city council meeting.
Well, the difference would be that if there's action items, they would have to be posted as an action item for the council. And you got 4 members of the council voting, in essence, or meeting and deliberating without there being other council members present.
They don't vote on anything. Audit committee doesn't vote on anything.
Sorry, Mayor. Let me just make it easy. I won't do it. I'll let Johnette take my spot.
Oh, well, I didn't mean to make you leave.
No. I'm just making it easy.
No, it does complicate things under the Open Meetings Act. So yeah, if Don is willing to step aside and allow you to step in, it's fine, more than reasonable. Look at him smile, my goodness.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you for letting me do some more work.
Okay. Mr. Cooks has made a comment which is contrary to what we have before us in terms of the resolution. Understanding as well that the reading of all the documentation we have relating to the audit committee, there is nothing that relates it to the timing of the general election. So it's up to council to accept the resolution as it is, or to give consideration to Mr. Cooks's request that this be delayed, that the audit committee stand with the substitution that's just been made until the November general election. And at that point, it will be addressed again.
Well, the only person who will be affected in the election is not going to be on the board. I guess the new person coming on, if there was a new person, could be another vote.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic that's just occurred with Mr. Mac Burnett stepping off and you stepping on. There will be no change in the composition of the committee for the election at all.
No.
So it becomes a moot point.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, if you would consider approving agenda item 5B and appointing Councilmember Harvey, Jameson, Vera Cruz, Mr. Talley, and Mr. Rutherford.
Is there a motion to that effect?
So move.
We have
Second.
a motion. And we have a second by Mr. Mac Burnett. Thank you very much. I think we've had our discussion. City Secretary, roll call vote, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. One last question. Who appoints the chair? Do we appoint the chair?
That
Or do they
Part of this is to designate the chairman.
And it's showing as Councilmember Patrick Harvey as the chair based on the resolution we have in front of us.
I only said that because then we need to also include that into our motion.
Well, it's stipulated in the policy. Okay, we can do that. With the
Mayor
re-elect,
and Council, if the movement and the second would acknowledge that Mr. Harvey is the chairman, that would suffice.
is there an acknowledgement of that change by those who, by the individual who moved and the individual who seconded?
Yes, for me, second.
Correct. Second.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay. So, City Secretary, you have all that down?
I do, sir.
Thank you very much. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Vera Cruz, 4 are against.
4,
Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Anderson, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Cooks, 4 are against.
4,
Councilmember Jameson, 4 are against.
4.
At-large Councilmember Harvey, 4 are against.
4.
Mayor Gordon, 4 are against.
4. The motion is passed unanimously. Thank you very much, Council, and thank you, Mr. McBurnett and Ms. Jameson, for your
Thank you, Don.
participation. Okay. All right, moving on to item 5C. We do have some action to be taken as
Yes.
a result of executive session.
Yes, Mayor and Council, I would ask Council to consider the following motion. Motion to appoint Paul Frederickson as interim city manager effective July 1st, 2020, subject to a contract to be prepared by the city attorney and approved by the city council.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Jameson, a second by Councilmember McBurnett. We've had our discussion. This is a roll call vote. Please vote. City Secretary.
Councilmember Vera Cruz, 4 are against.
4,
Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Anderson, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Cooks, 4 are against.
4,
Councilmember Jameson, 4 are against.
4.
At-large Councilmember Harvey, 4 are against.
4.
Mayor Gordon, 4 are against.
4. Thank you, Council. The motion is unanimously carried. As a matter of consideration and protocol, what we need to do now is address Assistant City Manager, Mr. Frederickson. Are you there?
I am. For some reason, I can't get my, the host needs to let me turn my video on.
Well, maybe not seeing your face is a benefit. I'm not sure.
Did I just tee that up for you or what?
Yeah, you did. You teed it up and I got my driver out. Yeah.
That's right.
Paul, you heard the motion and you heard it's been approved unanimously, and it's only right and proper that we ask you if you are willing to accept the position of interim city manager under the conditions that were just read by this motion.
I accept.
Thank you very much. We do appreciate that. Oh, there you are. Okay. So we are so thankful for that. And, you know, I just got to say that it's a fine thing that we have the strength and numbers in our staff that we are able to do this. You have our full confidence, Paul. And knowing that, that you and Kevin, when it comes time for the transition, will do that seamlessly. So we thank you very much for that. Thank you for stepping in as well. Okay. Okay, moving on to item 6, staff and board reports. City Council, you have been provided with the Public Works Department quarterly report and the monthly financial report as of April 30th, 2020. Do you have any questions of either Mr. Ramey or Mr. Summerlin on the 2 reports that have been provided to us?
There are 2 different agenda items.
Yeah, well, okay, I'll separate. Is any questions of Mr. Ramey on the Public Works quarterly report? Seeing none, is there any comments or questions on the monthly financial report of Mr. Summerlin?
Mayor, I'd like to at least make a comment.
Surely.
I want to thank Richard, our city manager, and their policies. We do have a little bit of a tough road, but I think they've done a really nice job that will help us get through this. So I want to thank you for your expertise.
Thank you for that. Mr. Summerlin, I do have a question. And has there been any time to sit down and evaluate based on the impact of COVID-19 on our businesses, what you might project as the sales tax revenue shortfall going into the end of the fiscal year. Not holding it to any number, just, you know, just trying to get some idea of what y'all think. I'm not hearing you.
He left.
No, he went back. He's going to move back to Paul's office, I guess.
I have a question for him also.
Okay.
And I can tell you that I sat in on the Economic Development Board, and they took the sales tax through April, and it was down 14%. And they did not have it through May.
Yeah, we run 2 months in arrear all the time. And April is the first fully affected month of COVID-19.
Yeah.
I was impressed that they was asking some good questions of the finances and wasn't just accepting it.
There you are. Okay, we've got you, Rich.
Okay, so your question was about the sales tax, is that correct?
Yeah, if any, just kind of any estimate or prediction on the sales tax revenue shortfall going into the end of the fiscal year.
Yes, and we will talk specifically about that shortfall when we go into the budget workshop, but I wanted to give you some idea of how I came up with my estimate of sales tax revenue for the remainder of the fiscal year. So the way that I calculated that, I took the months that we have actuals, which we have actuals from October through March, and I took what sales tax for the remainder of the year, April through September. I took the actuals from the prior fiscal year, and I reduced that by 25%. And that's the way that we calculated or estimated where we would come out on sales tax. And based on the information that we'll get over the next couple of months when we start receiving the COVID impacted months, which will very, very quickly, not this week, but next week, we will get the April sales tax in June. And so we'll have a much better feel, much better idea after we receive that. That'll be the first month that we'll have the COVID impact. We already know some of the factors relating to the loss of one of our major taxpayers has affected our sales tax, but that's already factored in here.
Okay, all right. Any other Ms. Jamison, you had a question for Mr. Summerlin.
Yes, you may not have it in front of you, but I listened in on the Economic Development Board's budget, and they had a line item, I think it was number 35, and it was about a $2,000, and it said medical expense, and somebody asked about it, and Jessica said that the human resource director asked that be, it says medical expense, and that was it. That was the answer. And so what is that?
We'll have a full discussion of that in the budget workshop, but basically we're making a proposal to dissolve the self-insurance fund, and that's where that line item was coming from. But we're going to talk more in depth about that.
That's to account for the personnel that are funded out of the EDC. So it's just part of the benefits package.
Okay. I what?
Yeah. The economic development director is funded out of the EDC program, so salary benefits are included in that. We're just showing it now as a separate line item. And we'll, as Richard said, we'll explain that more when we have the workshop next week.
Yeah, well, I have a better idea now.
Okay. All right, Mr. Anderson? Yes.
Yeah, Richard, are we saving money without doing on the bulky trash? Are we getting discounts? Are we still getting, I'm just curious at that because people are asking me and I'm getting.
I think I would be better suited to let either Kevin or Ramey, if he's still on, our Public Works Director, to address that.
So
Kevin, I'm on.
Okay, Greg, go ahead. You want to explain?
Yes, sir. So when basically the curbside bulk service and those costs that Republic was bearing in terms of labor was actually transferred over to cover the increase in curbside garbage during COVID. And so with all the people home, there's more trash accumulating for the twice a week service. And so in order to cover the labor to pick up that garbage, they had to pull it from the labor to do that was running the bulk collection trucks. So there is no, I guess, rebate, or I don't know the right word for it, for the suspension of the bulk collection. The bulk collection at the service center is also an additional cost to the city for the dumpster removal when it gets full.
That seems pretty I don't really get that because I don't see them picking up any more trash. I mean, I don't see. That's minuscule compared to picking up all that funky trash. This is a problem I have with them on a lot of stuff, but I deal with them on my commercial stuff. So yeah, they'll miss days, but I never get a rebate. And so it feels like they do the same to me. They do the same to the city. I've had this continual problem with them. So that doesn't seem like a fair trade to me for some reason. So
when they provided the reports and their tonnage in terms of how much they're picking up on curbside for garbage is significantly up.
And we pay more. We pay for that. I mean, we pay by the ton.
No, sir. We don't pay by the ton, but it means that they are filling up their trucks faster, and they have to go to the landfill and come back and pick up. So they are here. So based on they're also restricted by Department of Transportation rules on how long their commercial drivers can drive and operate a vehicle. So they are bound by that. So their resources, they were having to shift more resources to the solid waste pickup, the residential curbside, and that's what they were doing. They were shifting some of those resources away from the bulk pickup to pick up trash. And as Greg said, the numbers they showed us, the residential solid waste, there was just some significant increases. And that was nationwide. And that was not just Republic. That was nationwide, that people were depositing more solid waste. So we wanted to continue with the bulk because we felt it was important. That's why we provided the Saturday drop-offs. Those costs, we believe we can get reimbursed through the CARES Act funding for that or through FEMA, because it is COVID related. It is directly related to the pandemic. So we will be exercising every opportunity we can to get reimbursed for our expenses on that bulk pickup. And we do expect Republic to resume normal bulk pickup here around mid-June.
Does our contract with them give them the right to do that, to just add more on?
It's a force majeure due to unforeseen circumstances that put them into an emergency situation. And that was what they exercised, was that provision of the contract. Waste Management, our landfill operator, also at the beginning of the pandemic, provided us information that they might exercise the force majeure clause as well and restrict landfill operations, because they were also seeing the increase in solid waste being landfills. They did not, but that was one thing that early on they did say that they might have to exercise that.
But there's got to have been a decrease though in commercial. So you're either at work or you're at home. And so the commercial, we don't get a discount. I mean, we didn't get it.
Well, the commercial operations, we did not fund. Those are directly paid by those businesses. So I can't speak.
What I'm saying, they're not taking as much in commercial because people are at home. So it's just not a fair trade, in my opinion. You know, this, you know, I don't like the way I'm treated as a commercial business person with them. I don't feel like this is a fair trade, because they're getting paid still in commercial, which it's not there because people are at home. People are either at home or at work. They're creating trash. They're still charging us on commercial accounts the same as we were. So they're getting double dip. They're getting the money. They're getting that for nothing, for doing nothing, and charging us more for residential. So I don't think it's fair.
Mr. Anderson, I would ask you to be careful in your discussions of personal business matters in terms of contract with someone that we have.
I'm just saying that there's less commercial trash.
I understand.
He's a business owner on the council.
I understand. Okay. Now, one thing that we can go back to, that when we began to discuss this, I recall very clearly in terms of looking at the tonnage and the data, the Republic reported to us as a council that in the past, under normal circumstances before COVID-19, that their trash handlers and their truck drivers were able to usually complete their routes throughout our city somewhere between 2 and 3 in the afternoon. But as a result of the increased residential trash that has been picked up, some of those routes were running past into the 5 and 6 o'clock time frame, and that affects the pay of the drivers and affects the federal regulations in terms of those holding CDLs as well. So that data is already in our hands. We've already been exposed to that. We already know that there is some effect in terms of there being a wash between the cost of what's going on with the bulk and still being able to provide that. I think that's what Mr. Ramey has explained. And we just, these are extraordinary circumstances. And the fact that we still have an opportunity as residents to take bulk to the service center, I think is absolutely good in terms of, and Kevin is reporting in a weekly report the number of times those dumpsters are being used and having to be emptied, and the tonnage that's going through there as well. So our citizens are taking advantage of that, and they are pretty well aware that the bulk is suspended for this time temporarily.
So can we find out, can we ask the question of how much they're taking commercially and how much that went down?
Mayor, I would caution us that we're kind of outside of asking a question about the financial condition of the city, which is Richard's report, instead of discussing the nuances of the waste contract. I don't mean to cut you all off, but.
That's fine. That's fine. Well,
I think we should probably put that on an agenda as an item to discuss, because I'm not satisfied with that answer.
Okay, you can put that in. We'll do something with that. All right. Any other questions in terms of the financial report, specific to the financial report? Okay, seeing none, I'm adjourning the meeting at 8:36. Thank you very much, City Council. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your work. Thank you.